Thanks for joining us tonight. And so today we have Shoin here, and he is basically going to talk to us a bit about product metrics, and particularly, some of a bit about the product that is, one of our great sponsors, um, has in part of their portfolio, Mixpanel. So he is, a growth and analytics consultant in his past career, and also has done some work as a growth and design officer. It's super talented, obviously. Great hair. Showing son, I like your haircuts. Looking good. So very Genki. So we're excited for your module tonight. And please take it away. Oh, sorry, don't take it away yet. Sorry, guys. Before I forget, I don't want to forget this. We have two reminder points. So number one is the final capstone file. The deadline for that is January 30th by 10 a.m. Okay. So please make sure to get all your data, all your information that you need to submit in the file by January 30th at 10 a.m. Okay. That's number one. And the second point is please make sure if you haven't already to RSVP to our final party. So the final party is going to be a really great wrap up to JPC 2024. You're going to be able to network with, Showing. I think if he goes,
Yeah,
other people, instructors, mentors, and it's going to be a blast. And so we want to see you there. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Showing. Without further ado, I'll hand it over.
great. All right, let's get started. Thanks for coming, everybody. It's great to see you all, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone in person as well. Um, well, we'll dive into it. The topic today is called understanding your product metrics. Um, I'm gonna guess that most of you guys are here because you want to either be in product, be startup people, or be a good product manager, right? Or VP of product. And I would like to tell you, I've worn a lot of hats in product. I'll introduce myself in a little bit, but I would say understanding product metrics and being data driven will help you set you off to be one of the best PMs or co-founders and wipe out your competition or just be one of the best in your company. And this is purely because this whole thing comes around just from the fact that building products is hard and it's not often purely logical. Your product and what your users will do is surprise you. So you often need to be humbled by figuring out what's happening in the product and not just trust your senses. And so if you want to be like an excellent product maker, I think this is will be a really good, starting thing. Now, having said that, it's not the easiest to understand. Sometimes we'll be covering a lot, but I promise you, just keep an open mind and know that you don't need to memorize everything. Just understand what exists in the world, and I think you'll be fine. So, yeah, we'll dive right in. Like I said, building a product is tough. Building one that consistently delivers values to your users is a real challenge. Um, and we'll see quickly that best companies succeed because they're data driven. They don't rely on just gut feelings. They often rely on metrics. And I'm seeing comments. That's great. Everyone is welcome to comment. Uh, there'll be some question sections too. And today I want to cover metrics according to your product, as well as product analytics, which is often how you look at metrics, right? And also how uh, analytics can kind of deep dive into your metrics and see how everything is working. Um, so we'll get into that. So today you'll understand the true role of product metrics. You'll understand a proven framework to organize and prioritize your metrics, and you'll be able to transform analytics into strategies that drive conversion, engagement, and retention. And let's get started. So first off, a little bit about me. My name is Shoin Wolfe. I'm half Japanese, half American. I've been maybe in Japan, like 60% of my life now. I grew up in New Mexico in America. I'm CEO of Shoka Sonjuku, which is a data-driven product growth consultancy. It's a very small consultancy. It's just me and a couple other people. Um, but I take cloud clients in Japan as well as abroad. Some clients include Docomo, if you know, Lifel Homes, which you might have rented a home from there. If you're looking for homes, you probably know Tinder. and Google, specifically Tenor, their GIF engine division, as well as Toyota Research Institute. They're called Woven now, I think. Previously, I've been a co-founder of uh, one of Japan's largest fiction platforms called Teller Novel. They're still killing it right now, as well as the dating app called Hatch. Hatch didn't work out well, but as is product making. I've worn a lot of hats in my career. I've been head of growth, chief design officer, UI UX designer, venture capitalist. Uh, I was and I'm still am a bad comedian. I host shows at Tokyo Comedy Bar. I'm taking a little bit of a break right now because I'm trying to write a book on data. I was kind of a bad, probably comedian, but I was a pretty good DJ before DJ became cringy for probably a lot of you young folks here. There was an era where DJing was all right. Anyways, I've worn a lot of hats. So let's keep going. And before we dive in, I want to thank Mixpanel for allowing me to use their platform for this presentation. We're going to use their analytics a little bit. I'll be showing off to you guys because it's a little probably hard to just suddenly use a new software. They're also offering startups their first year on Mixpanel for completely free. So I'll give you guys a link later. And it's a fantastic opportunity to get started with world-class product analytics. Just a quick note, 10 years ago when I was a designer and kind of being the lead PM for an app, my first product analytics I ever touched was Mixpanel, and they've evolved to be better since then. So I highly recommend it. So it'll be great to show off what Mixpanel really can do as well. You'll find them used in Japanese companies like Paydi, Sansan, as well as companies abroad. So we'll definitely check it out later. All right, let's get started. Today we're going to learn the importance of metrics and the framework. We're going to go deep dive per metric category to understand why these are important. And then we'll do a workshop of defining TikTok's key metrics. TikTok, surprisingly relevant. And we'll build a KPI dashboard with the metrics that we built for TikTok. And then if we have time, we'll define your product's key metrics. Maybe it'll probably be more of a discussion. We'll see how much time we'll have left. Okay, so I want to start out with a quote. There's a quote about data I really like. Grace Hopper, a pioneer in computer programming, famously said, "One accurate measurement is worth more than 1,000 expert opinions." And I think that's a lot of truth for kind of modern tech companies. So what does this really mean? To me, this means that no matter how smart or rational or experienced we are, our opinions are ultimately just hypotheses in the end. They're kind of they're waiting to be verified or disproven by data. And I say they're hypotheses because a lot of what we think how the product is happening or what we think products users would like can often be wrong. I get humbled all the time. I create designs I think users will like or do experiments that I think would grow the product and it fails abysmally. And if that happens to me, who actually looked at the data and created a hypothesis, then it's happening extra to people who aren't talking to their users or aren't looking to their data. Making a product is really kind of humbling. It really shows you how much we don't know because there's just too many variables, really. So if you want to outperform your competition and most importantly deliver actual value to your customers, your making needs to be evidence-based, not just opinion-driven. And we can see that's true in a lot of top performing companies. We can take Jeff Bezos, for example. He once said in an Amazon shareholders report that many of the important decisions we make at Amazon.com can be made with data. There is a right and a wrong answer, a better answer or a worse answer, and math tells us which is which. These are our favorite kinds of decision. He's probably more controversial these days, but we'll leave that aside from now. Amazon itself grew tremendously, so we'll judge him by that. And similarly at Google, Jamil Jain, who was one of the former director of product design, put it succinctly, if you can't measure it, it didn't happen, is a common refrain heard at Google. The takeaway here is pretty clear. Top performing companies don't just value measurement, they kind of depend on it. And they don't bring opinions to the table because everyone's got an opinion. They try to sway with data. Otherwise, whoever's the most important in the room kind of just gets to decide. And that doesn't mean that's right? So And here are some of the ways that data metrics help us grow our product. They give us insights on product health, right? It tracks vital signs for early warnings or growth signals. It lets us prioritize features. It lets us know which features are most valued in helping in future prioritization efforts. This is important. A lot of us will go to a product and we think, oh, this search bar is horrible. This experience is horrible. If I were them, I would have fixed it by now. But what we don't know is like feature usage rates, right? What percent of users are using search, right? That can really change. Like, well, if search isn't important, that's why maybe it hasn't been fixed. And I like your questions so far, guys. I'll answer it in bulk in a little bit, uh, but keep on asking them because I'll roll back and answer all of them. It also helps us identify power users, right? Some users, not all users are made the same. Some users use your product way more, and you kind of want to be looking at what they're doing and listening to them. It helps us find bottlenecks. So if there's onboarding, you're like trying to create a account or trying to experience value for the first time, trying to pay, you want to see where people are dropping off, right? And it lets us, most importantly, validate hypotheses. Uh, if you have your metrics, you can then launch things and then see what it does to those metrics. So it helps you validate or invalidate hypotheses. And lastly, it's not just product people, it's for marketing. It lets us assess ROI of marketing channels, right? Because sure, with marketing tools alone, you can see how many clicks you get or how many downloads, but beyond that, how many people that marketing collects actually pay, how many people stick around, things like that. Metrics are truly invaluable, I think. But that leads to the question. We get that data is important and everybody uses it. Well, okay, what metrics should I be measuring? The natural question. Well, I wanted to show you guys, instead of just giving you a list of metrics to track, it's way more effective to use kind of a metric framework to explain the why behind what we measure. And there's a couple of popular product metrics frameworks out there. You might have heard like Pirate Metrics, ARR, North Star, things like that. Today, I want to focus on Mixpanel's focus metric framework, since we're going to be using Mixpanel anyway. It's very holistic. It's easy to understand. It'll kind of help you prioritize in your brain what kind of categories matter really well. So that's what we'll get into. So first, let's go one by one. There's kind of 6 components here, right? The top focus metric component and then the 5 ones that are under it. And let's get into it. So the most important metric is the one that sits at the top. It's the focus metric. So we'll talk about that first. Everything is leading into the focus metric, right? Now, so what exactly is the focus metric? The focus metric is the metric that captures the core value of your product is delivered to customers. Now, what does that mean? That's usually typically an active customer count defined by active usage with the natural frequency of use. That sounds hard, but I'm going to explain it. So let's go back to the definition. It captures the core value of your product is delivered to your users or to your customers. The core value is basically the benefit that what your product offers. If you're Netflix, you offer video watching experience, right? If you're TikTok, you are offering a way to spend your time. If you're an accounting software, you're offering a tool that does accounting. That's the value. And then the end of the sentence, delivered to customers. This is I will use customers and the phrase customers or users a lot. They are completely different things. Customers are people who are paying. So the focus metric, typically, you can have anything you want technically, but I would highly recommend it being core value delivered to customer. So typically an active customer count metric defined by active usage with the natural frequency of use. What does that mean? That would mean for like a jogging app, it would be like weekly active paid joggers, not just weekly active users or daily active users or users or visitors. We would want weekly active paid joggers. Let's break that down. So active usage would be something like an event where we can confidently assume that value has been delivered to the user, right? Uh, Sorry, I screwed the English up here. I'm sorry, but you get the gist. So the jogging app, I would argue you might make the definition of active usage as strict as possible. So you might want to not do start jogging. You might want to do like a complete jogging because the value doesn't come from your product when you start jogging. It completes when you complete. It comes when you complete the jog, right? So we might say for a jogging app, it would be completing the jog, and the natural frequency of use would be the regularity with which users naturally engage with a given product. So for social media, it would be daily. For like a jogging or exercise app, you don't expect them to maybe do daily. You might expect them to do a couple times a week. So you'd say maybe weekly. So putting that all together again, for a jogging app, that would be weekly active, which means jogging paid joggers, right? So the focus metric would be weekly active paid joggers, and everything would just be categories of things that we can look at to increase that number. And I'll give you some examples and then I'll answer some questions. So let's look at specifically Japanese companies. I hope you know some of these because I'm guessing you either maybe like want to work for these or you work for these or you at least use them. Um, let's look at some examples. So Albema is basically a Japanese Netflix clone. Perhaps if they want to be strict, they would consider active usage watching 5+ minutes. Now, keep in mind, these might not be their definitions, but these are example definitions. Why 5+ minutes? It's because we've all opened YouTube or Netflix and like looked at a video for 1 minute and decide, nah, not going to watch it. So maybe you want to get commitment, right? So you say 5 minutes. Natural frequency of use is weekly. I know a lot of us watch different types of media daily, but oftentimes you categorize these types of video streaming platforms weekly because people use maybe a couple times a week. So you'll get weekly active subscribers is the focus metric, right? Cookpad is a place where you can find Japanese recipes, and perhaps this would be view recipe for over 1 minute to know that they're maybe looking at it deeper, or you can just do view certain section of recipe. So view the recipe section of the recipe, not just the pictures, right? And this would also be weekly because you're not going to look up recipes maybe on the daily. And you might want to do like weekly active cookers. And this would be all users because the platform is primarily ad driven, which means every user is a customer. So you don't have to make that distinction. Mercari, that's basically Japanese eBay, would be completing a purchase. Most e-commerces is just completing a purchase. Yeah, someone says in the comments that they're a top user of Mercari. That's great. Now you can kind of break down how they might view you as a user, right? And they would be monthly because they don't expect you to buy daily or weekly. Probably a lot of us buy maybe quarterly, but that's too long of a time span. So they would often probably choose monthly. So they would be monthly active purchasers. And then lastly, maybe like accounting software. A lot of the best jobs are often like B2B SaaS, boring like business facing software, but that's where a lot of big money is made. So I think it's fair to have a non-consumer facing example. It would be a little stricter. I would go for completed monthly accounting as active usage. So not everyone typing in their accounting info or active usage or like logging in or anything like that. The only way that an accounting software provides you value is if you can complete the accounting, which means you close your books, right? If you closed your book, you're not. And by that you do monthly active accounts. And that's basically the gist. So that is the most important metric, and the rest are going to be, we're going to dive deeply into the rest. But before that, I want to make sure everyone has a grasp of things so far. So I'm going to look at some of the comments. And if you have questions, feel free to type in the comment. Um, Someone says they actually love metrics. Got to know your metrics. It's good. In your opinion, which metrics are worth measuring more than others? We'll definitely go over that. And in the end, if you still feel like it's a little confusing, you can ask me. Um, I'll give you a little bit of thought though, is first of all, obviously revenue, but well, of course, but the whole point is to find metrics that are before revenue, kind of early indicators, right? Um, it is customer retention that is the most important. Whether a customer that paid stays, because that is the best way to rack up revenue. It's not even close. But in order for a user to stay, not only do they have to pay, they have to enjoy. So everything leads to getting a customer to stay. So that's arguably the most important. Um, yeah. Any other questions so far? Voice is fine too. Comments is fine. We all good so far? Okay. Then we'll keep going. Okay. So the focus metric is great. We have a goal metric, but it's the focus metric itself is not enough. You need kind of groups of metrics that are driving up your focus metric and keeping it healthy. You need to break it down, right? And these are the levers you have to grow your focus metric. So these supporting KPIs are what we call level one metrics. Level one metrics are metrics that are either directly contribute to the focus metric or act as a check to make sure the product is growing in a healthy direction. So it's everything that's breaking apart, uh, arguably stages of the user journey, as well as making sure the platform's running. So we have reach, right? The addressable audience, how many users are coming. We have activation, which is the discovery to first time value. We have engagement, which is kind of like depth and power usage. So basically, how are people using the product? Are they getting value? We have retention, which is long term usage. Stricter definition would be repetition of either usage or payment. And then business specific, which can be like cost, efficiency, other things like that. Um, yeah, we kind of have better definitions here. Sorry, let me. Um, I'm not going to explain this. We're kind of going into depth on each slide. So, uh, like I said before, most of the L1 metrics, the level one metrics, are customer lifecycle based, and I think this kind of visualization helps with that. We see how many addressable audiences there are. Then we understand what percent we can activate so they receive value from our product, right? We then see the status of the depth and frequency of the value exchange through engagement. And if the value exchange is valuable enough, the users will retain and come back to engage further on later dates. And then business specific metrics act as a health check the entire way. And so you can kind of see we start here and then we start going in a loop here of kind of getting value and paying for it and coming back. So let's dive deep into each one. So first off is reach. Well, what is reach? It's the total number of people who have used the product in a recent time period. You can represent this as the maximum amount of users who could reasonably become active in the next term, whether organically or through engagement. So basically, um, recently, how many people have become either users or potential users, right? So Abema, if we look at the examples, Abema TV would probably be number of downloads of their app. Mercari is a little more trickier. It's I wouldn't count visitors per se. You would have visitors as a leading metric to reach, but they're not using the product per se, or like we would be a little strict because we would just have too many visitors with Mercari um, who aren't signed up. So I would say either number of signups, or perhaps if you want to go bigger, number of logged in visits is fine too, and free as well as number of signups for accounts. But that's probably easy to understand. You track new users, you track total amounts of users, things like that. Now, activation. Who here has heard of activation before in a product metric sense? Not so much. Some people. I'm sure you can kind of guess it, but it's a little trickier than you think. I think a lot of people might think like it's just onboarding, like it's just account creation. But I'm here to tell you it goes a little further than that. So activation is one of the most important metrics too, because most users kind of disappear during this phase. So we'll talk about that. So what is activation? Activation is the foundational step that primes new users into becoming an active and recurring user. Activation is critical because oftentimes the largest share of users leave in the first few days. Let's look at the chart below, or on the bottom left. This is a pretty famous chart that shows retention curves for Android apps within the first 90 days. And it's categorized by the top 10 uh, most popular apps, the next 50 most popular apps, next 100 most popular apps, next 500 apps. Not popular, sorry. High performing retention apps. Now we can see the most retaining apps um, might see on day zero have 100%, but by day one, they'll often see around like 70% of users. So that means 30% dropped off on the first day. Whereas the worst performing 5,000 apps, we're seeing around like 35%, 36%. So that means 70% of users drop off on the first day. There's a couple interesting things about this, right? First off is how big the difference is with high performing apps and low performing apps. Uh, Platforms like Facebook or something, back in the heyday, if you joined, you just had such a high likelihood of just you staying there, right? It was just highly sticky. It was highly addictive. There's value to it, so you keep coming back. But most products, just like probably a lot of the apps that you might have downloaded or services you tried this year, you're probably not back after the next day. That's the status quo. It's very hard, especially these days, to convince people to quit what they already do and have a new habit. So it's tough. So that's why activation is important, right? But even then, even when we look at top 10 apps, you can see that their biggest drop off is often on the first day, if not the first 14 days, right? So no matter what type of company you are, you will lose a good chunk of your users on your first couple of days. Um, and so you will be need to working on this. And on the other hand, if you're able to save even a couple of percentage points here, it means tremendously more for your user base. You'll just have more and more users because more and more users will stick around. But let's look at examples of activation. Now, activation has phases. So before we look at here, I'm actually just going to skip to the next one to kind of show you stages of activation. I would argue that this is chat work, which is basically a Japanese version of Slack. But I think when you hear activation, you might think it's from maybe like sign up to start onboarding, and it finishes at like when you finish onboarding and creating your account or something, or you finish, the hey, try this, hey, look at this, things like that, right? I would argue that it's not, and most companies would argue that it's not. Activation is when you get the first value, like the first time you get the core value of the product. So for Slack or chat work, it wouldn't be finish when you finish onboarding. That would be the setup moment. It would be when you write your first message or when you join a certain amount of Slack groups, things like that, right? And then there's an even optional stage that a lot of companies look at called the habit moment, which is the moment we can agree that they have a high likelihood of a longer retention, which is like, okay, to what milestone do you need to get where you can confidently assess that they're probably going to stick around? And Slack or chat work would be things like teams that write, you know, hundreds of messages per month. If they cross that milestone, they'll know, okay, this team, we don't have to worry too much. We don't have to send discounts too much. They're naturally going to do it, things like that. Now we understand if we look at competitor, different products, we'll see Abema might not just be, joining the app. It would be to start the trial and watch certain minutes, X amount of minutes within the first 30 days. I think they'll want the user to start their trial to watch videos, and then they want to make sure that they watch an X amount of minutes to to see that, okay, they've probably watched enough to experience them as a whole. Perhaps Mercari's first purchase in 30 days. It can get a little more complicated with purchases, but that would be a good one for e-commerce. If someone's showing up to your shop to buy something, they're already thinking about it. So saying, okay, they'll probably buy within the first 30 days is reasonable. And free accounting software would be like completing onboarding and connects bank in the first month. Uh, I think for more enterprise products, it's just longer for them to get actual value. So they have to kind of cave and go for a little bit of an earlier value. Uh, I think the natural question would be, how do you even know what your activation event is? And honestly, most companies wrongly just kind of uh, guess it. That's fine if it's your startup. That's fine. But the correct way to do it is to be, you could do it. The first option is you could do it rationally. You could say, okay, in the strictest definition, when do I know a user, when can I reasonably assume a user has gotten the core value of the product? And if it's strict, then that's fine. Uh, but if you want to be data driven, if you have enough data, you have enough users, a couple months, then you can kind of assess, okay, at what point of the user lifecycle, how far did a user have to go for us to reliably assume that they would stick around? And you could set the goalpost there if you'd like. That's usually I think you could be very strict and rational and choose an activation moment just with no logic. And habit moment, you might want to be more empirical. You might want to use more evidence for that. And we've got a comment, so I'll answer now. How would you separate retention from engagement? Example, if I spend 1 hour looking at trailers on Netflix, that's not value. That's a great question. So with I think you're saying I see. Um, I'm gonna ignore the retention from engagement part, but I understand your question is, well, how do we know if they experience the core value or not? You have an event, so we'll see this later, but sorry. On actual product analytics, what you'll see is that you're not tracking page views. It's not like Google Analytics. You're tracking user actions. So you'll probably select user watch videos. So this is everybody who watched a video, unique. So it's not total amount of time, just the number of users who watched it. And then you might filter with, they probably don't have it, but maybe the category is not trailer. So you say like, it's not trailer or something. They probably don't have it here, but, and then perhaps you set percent watched or watch time over 5, right? Things like that. So it's as easy as that. That's the nice part, is that you guys don't have to rely on engineers to do this. Once it's set up, you'd be able to track it. So the answer to the question is, if you have a video, don't consider a trailer watch the same as a movie, like watching, like the actual content watching. Keep it separate, and make sure they fire different events or different attributes. So it's like watch video trailer, or it's like watch video content, things like that. All right. So we're going to keep going, but just remember activation, very, very important. Engagement, what is it? Engagement accounts for depth, which is more intense usage, breadth, more varied features, and frequency, so more number of actions of completing key action. Engagement is basically, how do users use the most important actions in the product? All the important actions. Examples would be like, how many videos did you watch? How many messages did you send? What percent are sending messages? What percent are using the core feature? Uh, how many power users are there? What are they doing? How many sessions were there with more than, on a messaging app with more than 10 messages? How many numbers of orders are there? Maybe perhaps card conversion rates, things like that. It's everything that has to do with how people are using it, uh, that's that's when you can use it. Now, activation is there's engagement and activation, but we carve that out separately, right? Activation is technically the early stages of retention, but we're not going to go over that right now. There are some overlap, but just look at the category and just it's easy to figure out. Engagement is obviously how are they engaging with the product, and anything that goes into that, totally fine. Put it in there. So for again, Abema, this might be average number of minutes watched, or perhaps a feature usage rate. Perhaps my list using the add to my list increases retention. Then you would want to track the my list usage rate of users. And by the way, this is super true. I've the Netflix has talked about how adding it to your my list is makes users stay longer, and I've done so. I can't say which, but for a Japanese Netflix type service, we increased the amount of users using my lists right away, and users use it more because it often creates the psychological effect of like, well, I have multiple things I want to watch and I haven't watched them, therefore I will keep the service. Now, here's a little tricky thing. Netflix, we're going off a little tangent, but I like these things. I do growth and analytics for a living, so but Netflix on onboarding um, will make you select, oh, what type of movies? What type of movies do you like? It makes you click a couple movies. I'm not sure if you guys remember that ever happening, but that happens, right? All right, this would be here. Um, and then you think that they're just doing it for recommendation purposes, like you chose Squid Games, things like that. But it automatically adds those movies to your my list, your list, and that's a growth hack. Because maybe that's not exactly what they wanted to watch, but it helps them understand the feature. And oftentimes it leads many users to be like, oh, you know what? I did want to watch that. So I'll watch that. So it's an activation growth hack. Um, all discoverable through metrics and analytics, But we'll keep going. Mercari, average number of listings viewed might be important, or favored search usage rates. For a free accounting, it might be multi-feature usage rates. So we want to track what percent of users are using multiple features at once, because accounting has many different dimensions. Or perhaps we want to check how many users are using advanced features, right? Maybe this is true for like Google Sheets or Excel. You don't want to just know what features users are using, but what features are your best users using, or your power customers, your power users, things like that. Because if you see that, okay, all the power customers are using a certain feature, perhaps uh, you can push more customers to use that. Another way to look at it is, okay, this is only used for depth, like only users who are very deep into it find value on it. In that case, that's often exactly where they start charging more, because they figured out, well, new users and new customers don't really care about this feature, and it's hard to convince them to because it's a deep feature, but our power customers love it. Therefore, if we set that feature to be the line between like the starter plan to the premium plan, then you'll often find users converting to use that feature because that it's something that the users need as they grow, right? Just to use Mixpanel as an example. So Mixpanel, as an analytics company, how do you make money? Well, they actually don't make too much money from really small company, but they make a lot of money from bigger companies. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, if you send a lot of events to us, which means you have grown over time, then we charge you more, because and that's great, right? Because it's a good freemium model. You get to use everything for free and figure it out. So it's free marketing. They get to see how valuable your product is for almost nothing. And as it grows more valuable for them, which means as there's more users, they charge more, which is fair. And users convert because they already know the whole value of it. So that's where engagement comes into account. So we covered engagement. Next is retention. And by the way, there will be a workshop quiz later, so make sure you're memorizing every single every single example in every single uh, product. No, I'm kidding, but just pay attention is all. We're, we've almost gone through most of the metrics, so don't worry. Um, Retention is the best metric. It's my most favorite metric. It's great. What is it? It's the rate at which users come back to perform the core action of a product within a certain period of time. Now, I will add to this definition because this is kind of the basic definition. I will add to it. It's not just usage. You should also calculate frequency of payment, right? Rate of which customers come back to pay within a certain time period. There's two forms of retention. One is a user retention, which is how often do they come back, and the other one is customer retention. How often do they come pay? They're both interlinked because if you're coming back, you're probably going to pay that kind of thing. But it's not always the case, so you want to check both. But for simplicity, let's just look at activity. So examples would be day 1 or 7 retention of watching videos. So day 1 retention is what percent of users come back after one day, so the next day basically. And day 7 retention will be, okay, how many users are coming back 1 week, literally 7 days from now. You might want to check stickiness of users, which is often called DAU/MAU or WOW/MAU. DAU/MAU would be daily active users over monthly active users. It shows you what percent of it basically shows what percent of your daily active users are available on kind of any given day of the month. It shows you basically how often they're coming back. You might want to track subscription churn rates, right? This goes more for payment. So churn rate is the opposite of retention rate. Retention being like what percent of users came back. So if Netflix kept 90% of their first time users, they have a 90% retention rate. Churn rate is the opposite of that. So that would mean Netflix has a 10% churn rate. So Netflix has said their biggest goal is to reduce subscription churn rate. That is the metric that they're after. And it's insanely hard metric to move because they're already like 90 some percent. So moving that metric is very hard, but that's what they would look at. You'd also maybe look at number of churn users or churn risk users. Retention is always a great place to look at, oh, this user who was active isn't using as much anymore. Maybe we should send them a notification. Maybe we should send them an email. Maybe we should ask them what's up. Things like that. These all fall under retention. So ABEMA. So each of these would fall under brackets of your natural frequency of usage that we covered earlier, how often users should be coming back. ABEMA might want to track, they might want to track day 1, they might want to track day 7, day 30, but most importantly, subscription churn rate would be the most important one. Mercari would probably just check everything, but the most important probably would be month 1 since they're a monthly product. They might even track MAU Cloud, which would be how many of their quarterly active users are around on any given month. So free accounting, similarly, maybe D1, W1, M1, month 1, but most importantly, month 1 subscription churn rate. And then finally, we have business specific. What is business specific? It's basically everything else. Other business specific metrics that measure the health or wealth of the business. You could put basically all your monetization categories in here because not all products necessarily are out to make money, right? There's like open source, there's maybe tools that you're just making internally, things like that. So it's not always around there. So oftentimes business specific might be like monetization around there, but there's also other things. So I want to cover those more than anything. This might be like load time, very important. NPS or CSAT are just basically surveys, boring. You might want to look at data center burn, things like that. You might want to look at referral rates, how much referrals being done. If you're a marketplace like Mercari, you might want to see the two-sided marketplace, like supply and demand ratio. Or is there too much supply? Is there too much demand? depending on that, you try to do marketing on more on one side or the other. Because surprisingly, you don't want just too much supply and not enough demand because you'll have disgruntled suppliers, and you don't want too much demand over supply because then they'll just think, oh, my curry has nothing. So they actually need it to keep a steady balance. For Abema, this would be ad revenue. This might be ratio of new versus current content, things like that. Mercari might be return rates, might be a very interesting one. They might want to track number of active sellers, things like that. Um, and I won't get too much in accounting, but one is net dollar retention. Uh, we won't cover that typically, but it's a more it's a dollar based retention, as well as maybe like support tickets over weekly active users, right? So, what percent of weekly active users are sending how many tickets, kind of thing. So you can kind of gauge how confusing your product is. Uh, Now, we covered L1 metrics. We're not going to cover L2 metrics, but I want to give you an idea of how kind of metric trees work. So we covered focus metric. That's our goal. We might want to, go for like weekly active uh, customers or monthly active customers, things like that. And what we just covered were level one metrics. So these serve as goal KPIs, right? The whole point of everything we covered is to come to an agreement on goals that you have for each category metric. Like, hey, we want to improve month one for retention. We want activation at 9%. We want our reach to be X amount of users, things like that. That's great. But the amazing part about data is we can keep breaking that apart to understand what like what the current numbers are comprised of to understand. So once you have your goal set, then you want to break the metrics down to see what it's comprised of. You can get a feel of what levers you have to improve the product. And that's what kind of level two metrics and beyond are. And that's kind of the bread and butter of, I would say, analytical platforms. I'll give you guys an example. So for reach can be dissected into new users, current users, or resurrected users, which is former users coming back, right? And so you can ask, well, I want more active users on the platform. Do I try for new users? Do I keep current users, or do I try to get more users to come back, right? And there's other ones. We can divide activation by so many things. The most important, I would say, to be iOS versus Android versus web. Uh, a lot of people don't realize this, but is well, even a lot of product people don't realize this, which is scary. Um, at least in Japan. But uh, it's better to look at desktop and mobile as a completely different product because you interface it completely different. You can see different things. It looks different. The code is technically different. Um, and if you group by web and mobile, you will see different activation rates. You'll see different monetization rates. That's what I'm saying about having a goal, which is like activation rate, and then breaking it down by different ways um, to have like many metrics to try to improve. So you improve your bigger metric. Um, and in larger companies, this structure that you see often aligns with goals. A department might aim to move an L1 metric while individual team might focus on improving L2. So what you'll see with bigger companies is like they will be entire activation teams or entire retention or customer support teams, whatever. The team is often centralized around a metric. And then within that team, there might be many teams focused on certain things. And that's how it's breaking down. Cookpad, I think it was Cookpad. No, it was Tabelog, which is how you reserve restaurants in Japan, right? Tabelog has a team just for their search bar. And they only do search bar things. I think it's a little boring, but that's how much they figured out that section of the product matters to them. So you just do search bar improvements, and you just break down search bar in as many ways as possible to figure out the different levers. So on break, I wanted to find something. So this is a great website called Mobbin. It's paid. There are some student discounts, so that might be good, but it gives you the UI and like the flows for like every product. Um, and here's Netflix. Here's what I was talking about earlier. When you sign up for Netflix and you ask like, oh, what languages do you want to be shown? And then it asks you this, right? It asks you, okay, uh, select three you like. And it just says, this helps us to find TV shows and movies you'll love. It doesn't say anything about saving them on your My List, technically. And you choose them. Um, and then selecting TV shows and movies just for you. By the way, they don't have to do this screen either. This is a trust thing. This is a growth hack. They can do it instantaneously. I know because I work with recommendation engines. It's just it's called labor illusion. Um, but it feels more tailored to you. So I think it's fine. I think if you're using psychology for the user's benefit, I think it's totally good. And if we go look here, well, you got young Sheldon, which this person chose earlier. Young Sheldon. Mhm. Not only that, but if you look really closely here, you can kind of see that everything they selected is right below, right? So it showcases the feature itself. And that is something they figured out with trial and error. And you know what they did? They looked at day one retention and they said, how can we improve that? And they did an experiment. They ran an experiment to show that and to add it to my list automatically. And that yielded positive results. So they implemented it. And uh, they probably maybe figured that out. They either figured it out logically, like, oh, maybe this feature is used a lot, or they looked it up, right? They looked it up. They saw that people who do use it retain better. That's how they figured it out. All thanks to data, which is, uh, as we can see, really powerful. Let's create a dashboard for TikTok's metrics on Mixpanel. I'll do the Mixpanel part, and you guys do the metrics creating part. So basically, I want you guys to think of what the metrics would be for TikTok. And I want you guys to break out in rooms. I'll give you an example with Mercari. Okay. Mercari might look like something like this. Maybe monthly active purchasers, reach might be, they might track, okay, how many signups are we getting? Or it might be, yeah, um, number of logged in users. Either is fine. We're not going to be too strict here. Activation might be first purchase in 30 days. Engagement might be average number of listings viewed or feature usage. Retention, you don't have to list everything. These are just examples. I would say month one would be probably the best one because they're a monthly natural frequency usage product. And business specific might be things like cart abandonment rate or number of active sellers. There's not going to be a right answer per se. I think there's many potential metrics that they would want to focus on for different reasons at different times. But I want to see if you guys can get good ideas for metrics in each of these categories. And most importantly, think of a focus metric. So you can screenshot this if you want. You don't have to fill it out in here. You can just do it in Notion and then report back. But you guys will be going out into your breakout groups and we'll give you maybe 10 minutes. All right, looks like everyone's back. Welcome back. Maybe you were finished, maybe you weren't. But yeah, now me and the panel of furries will judge you. We'll judge how smart you are. Okay, let's get going. Okay, let's fintech group two. Would you guys like to share your screen on what you made? Okay, number of app downloads, example total download from app stores given a certain period. Great. It's totally works for TikTok. We do not care about web too much because the core product is honestly the app, and we want everyone on the app. So perhaps we care, but I think our goal would be number of app downloads. Um, Activation, number of videos users has interacted with. Um, I think, or on the bottom, number of users whose screen time exceeds 30 minutes of day. So remember, activation only happens once. It's the first time. So the question is, how can we gauge if the user had pretty good value or not? Um, and I would say, yeah, either session time or number of videos watched or number of videos swiped, actually, probably for TikTok, because swipe is not only time, it's also how they train their algorithm to make it better. So I might have made that, but close. Engagement, number of likes, shares of videos. We might engagement, we might go for number of likes or shares, but you can like a lot or share a lot, right? Those are those are totally fine. I might go for percent of users doing it. Shares that we might be going for total shares, but that might even be an L2 reach metric, arguably, but still like numbers of engagement, we would care about like averages or percentage, which is oftentimes, and number times comments are left. Yeah, these are great. These are all great. Metric D1, W1, M1. Um, so fintech two, if you had to pick one, which one would you pick for D1, W1, M1?
I would say probably D1, since TikTok is such like a daily used app. Like people are on it multiple times
Yeah,
a day.
great, great. I think that's 100% correct. It's a daily use product, and we expect them to come back the next day. So we would care about D1. That's great. Um, I see other ones on there, average minutes watch search usage rate, but that would probably go on engagement, business specific, some or number of advertisements, totally ad revenue, 100%. Great. There's some adjustments that could be made, but you guys get the gist of the category, and that's all that matters for now. But great job. And focus metric daily active users, totally, totally correct. So great job, guys. Now
Thank you.
I'll ask. Thanks for showing it. And I wish I could get more time for explanations, but we got to go through a lot of teams. So, FinTech one, please.
We were doing it on the notepad,
Yeah, that's fine.
the whiteboard, but I think
Oh
we
no,
forgot to take the screenshot of it.
it's okay. We'll skip you guys. Let just say something in the comments or shout it out if you find if someone has it.
I do have a faint memory of what we've done. For focus metrics, we've done daily active users. Uh,
Okay.
for reach, we had done for reach, we had done signups.
Okay.
For activation, we had done a number of complete profiles created, like users add their name, location, add a
Mm,
profile picture of theirs, and everything.
hmm.
And for engagement, we had done number of shares, number of saves, number of comments, number of likes, number of views.
Hmm.
And for retention, we had done daily views, daily time spent. And for
Okay.
business, we had done number of content creators and ad revenue and number of sales from TikTok shops.
Okay. Okay. Great. Those are good examples. I liked what you did with uh number of content creators because that is a hugely important part for TikTok, right? Is they don't hire creators, they naturally grow them. So having more creators means more views to allocate and more kind of niche videos to promote people. So that's a great one. One question to you guys then. What would be maybe one of their most important engagement metrics in terms of feature usage? What would they be? What type of metric might they be tracking for
I
that?
think because they want to always improve their complex algorithm, right,
Hmm.
which they have of scrolling. One metric that could be useful to them is number of times a user constantly scrolls.
Hmm.
So that when the user stops scrolling, then they know that the content now that is being shown to the user is not relevant to his needs.
That's an interesting way to approach it. One argument I would have is that they're having a good, you've showed them a good video if they obviously engage with it or watch it a long time, right? And the higher likelihood if they're watching it a longer time. So you're right, scrolling is important, but they want to know how many minutes are often called unregretted. So how many may perhaps unregretted videos watched. So kind of the inverse of what you're saying might be one, but yeah, they also want to know how many swipes they are doing too as well. Those are all good. I would say ultimately uh, would be probably average session length. That would probably be what they're looking for the most because the longer seconds, the more ads they can show, and they are ad driven business, and videos are their main content. Thank you guys so much. It's too bad you couldn't take the screenshot, but you had a good memory, so thank you so much. Okay, streaming number 2. Do you guys have anything to share? Thank you, thank you.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen. Thank you. I like the hand drawnness. So good job with the focus metric. I think daily active watchers is a great name. In the end, it's all just branding, but to say instead of users using a synonym, but I think it's a good way to focus your team, and that's why a lot of people do it. And you're right, TikTok, you're here to watch. Jogging app, you're here to jog. So daily active watchers is exactly kind of the customized TikTok only metric that you would want to have. It's great. Reach number of downloads, great. Activations, signups over login, uploads, probably not correct. Remember, activation, and I know it's a bit tricky. It's the first time they've experienced core value of the product, and most users do not upload. And signups is a setup moment. Yeah, yes, they need to do that setup, but they do not reach the point where we feel they have experienced the product itself. But engagement, great. Views, likes, saving. We probably want usage rates of that. So what percent viewed, what percent are liking, what percent are saving, how often are they doing it? Retention would be not these, they would be, but the last one is correct. Open TikTok, how much they open TikTok in one day. So what percent open TikTok after day 1 is correct. And ads creators, TikTok shop. So for business, let me try to think of one for you. So business specific, what do you think they should track if they want to have a good metric for TikTok shop? What do you think would be like the specific metric for TikTok shop? Any of you guys are welcome to pitch in that theme. Oh, go ahead.
Maybe like the revenue, like how much they actually buy something from the TikTok shop.
Great. Yeah, exactly. When in doubt, the most obvious ultimate metric would be revenue, right? And then maybe for TikTok shop, they would break it down as a focus metric itself and break it down. Okay, what percent of people are buying? What percent are doing this? Now, the important part is for the general business, it's just a segment of the business. It is not the main revenue of TikTok. TikTok is only pretty much ads. If it's a certain segment, then you either don't track it too far, so you'll just say, okay, we'll just track revenue, and then we won't go too deep into it. Or there's a whole team that considers TikTok shop its focus metric, and it breaks everything down as an e-commerce. So within TikTok, there'd be like a segment that is tracking a whole e-commerce as if it were kind of like a Mercari almost. So great. All right. Was that FinTech 1 or 2? Was that was FinTech 1, right? Okay. So we'll go with streaming 2. Okay. So looking at a daily active users, great. And thanks for answering the little square on the top left. Entertainment, social networking. Yeah, it's entertainment. It's something to pass the time, honestly. Or social networking is totally correct. Reach signups. I would probably do number of downloads for app. But tricky part is I would probably do number of signups for web. And that's because web just has kind of garbage traffic of like just random visitors, whereas app downloads, you've kind of filtered people out. So activation, watch video, post videos, creators followed. As we said, none of those except watch video, and then watch video you probably want to make more strict engagement. Yeah, these are great. Yeah, and video completion rate. Now these wouldn't be L1s, these would be like L2s and beyond, but video completion rate is totally things we would want to know, right? Retention, daily active watchers. We would track a percentage, but it's good. And then metrics, great. Everyone understood it's an ad model, ad watched, and very good. Ads clicked, right? So it's not just ad revenue. How many clicks are we getting? That's good. We usually won't track clicks. That would probably be like an L2 or L3. We would probably just do like eCPM, which is just basically how much revenue we're getting for like either 1,000 views or 1,000 clicks, things like that. Probably just views. And TikTok shop links. Everyone's on that TikTok shop. They understand that's part of the business. That's good. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Lastly, team streaming one. Okay, great. Thanks. Daily active users. Everyone's killing the focus metric. They totally got the natural frequency of usage as well as core action. It's good. Reach, new signups, going to activation. Good. Consuming videos for up to 10 to 30 minutes, right? That's great. That's a good ballpark. And then you can figure it out with data, or you can, logically kind of ballpark it, right? And engagement is number of views, likes, comments, share, saves, exactly. Any core action we would want to track, and then from there we might want to pick like a main one, things like that. Retention, D1, fantastic. That's exactly what we want to focus on for new user retention, at least. Overall, to be honest, we would track kind of daily retention, like what percent of total users are coming back. But D1 is totally valid response for that. Business specific referral rates. So that's good. I'll ask streaming one. Referral rates. Why is that important enough to track as a goal, do you think?
So we said referral rates because like we've seen the system before, but also like there's the culture of sending your friends TikToks. And so I think it like also establishes the kind of connections between people as well as like your friends, for example, and it keeps them in the app as well. If like you end up sending them a lot of TikToks,
Yeah.
I think that helps in retention.
Totally. That's very, very accurate. So there's a couple of things to say about this. One is, God, there's an infinite amount to say about this, but we don't have like infinite time. But consumer products have low revenue per user. And what that means is they're not making much money off of us individually, but that's why they need a crap ton of users, right? But if they're not making revenues from us, then they can't justify spending like Ichiman yen targeting just one user, because they're not going to make money from Ichiman yen. They need free ways to get users. Now, consumer apps are good at getting free users if you have a good one, like TikTok. And one of the best strategies for that is referrals, right? So either sharing a TikTok or inviting through the referral program is one of their best ways to gain users, because it's free or close to free. Like they actually have paid referrals as well. But it's very important for them. And it's probably one of their biggest sources of downloads is word of mouth, friends saying that to friends, or share links, right? And what you're saying is exactly right. TikTok does something very clever, right? When you share a video, when they open it, not only do they share the video, they say like, oh, so-and-so, did that, and kind of like share this to you. And you're right. Once you connect with users, your friends especially, you tend to stick around because your friends are there. That was proven by Facebook. So that's a great sense on what is very important. So they cover their Alexa thing. I don't know anything about the project. I'm guessing it's as if you were running like an Alexa device, right? Like that business. And active users per day. Is it a daily product use? That's an interesting question for us, right? I think it is. I think it's supposed to be daily. And you're right, deliver weather updates. If that's one of the biggest use cases, then by data we'd be able to prove it's daily and things like that. So I would say it's daily active users, or daily active Alexa users, but close enough. Now let's look at your reach. Total enabled Alexa devices, total users using voice command. I think those are totally good. Activation, interacting with Alexa for the first command. Now, yes, but just in case, I would maybe do it a couple times. So you would repeat it. So like maybe doing Alexa for 3 or 4 times, just to make sure they have a good handle on things. Would be that. Engagement, total interaction with Alexa per day. Totally. That is the core value of Alexa. So we would probably measure with percent of users who, oh crap, I keep saying Alexa and she's right here. Oh no. Well, I'll just call her something else. We'll just say X, I guess. I would say number of, yeah. I would say what you have there, or DAO Mao, which is how often they come back per month. So how often they come back within a month. So a 90% DAO Mao means their monthly active users are active 90% of every day. Like 90% of day monthly active users are active on any given day, something like that. And retention, we would track probably daily churn rate or new daily retention rate. So D1. And business metric, revenue from Alexa devices. That is contestable, right? Because that is the big problem with Alexa. That's probably their goal, but they're not getting there. So I wonder if, I wonder if that truly is their business specific. I think collecting data or doing something with the data could be it too. So it would be interesting to talk about that potentially. Does that work? Okay, good. Okay, well, so now we're gonna use, so I said probably till 9, but we'll probably go a little longer, but if we want a QA, but I'll try to wrap it up as quickly as possible. Now I kind of want to show you, okay, I think we have a really good understanding on how kind of metrics work, how they can be categorized, how teams look at them, things like that. And I kind of want to give you a gist of how it could work for actually building it on a platform. This is very important, so try to understand if you can. So we're going to build what you guys just talked about, the metrics you guys just talked about on Mixpanel. And what we're going to do first is maybe we'll make a new board called TikTok KPIs 2, because I already made a 1. And then we're going to start building reports. Maybe first we want to track installs. So we would track something like app install, right? And looks like it jumped in January 1st. And here we go. We have app installs. We have roughly 100 users downloading the app every single day, things like that. And then we will save this the KPI dashboard. I would do something like, okay, reach. Number of downloads. And, maybe I want it as a column bar. Things like that. And then we get to more interesting like watched X minutes of videos or something. Now, this would be a funnel. So we would be looking for things like, okay, the app install, they signed up. I would do like sign up start, sign up end, things like that. And then we would do watch video. So we can see, okay, we have 100% of app installs, only 85 signed up, and 66% watched the video. That's great, but we're strict. We want to make sure the users are getting value. We're not just sending horrible videos. So maybe we would go to um, watch time in minutes is greater than or equal to 5 minutes, right? And 64%. That's not bad. There wasn't much of a drop from before, so that's pretty good. We could have done it a different way. We could have said instead of minutes, we could have just kept adding videos, for example, like another watch video. We could have also said, they watched, maybe if it was Netflix or something, we wanted to say they watched 75% of a video. We could do that, but we're going to keep it simple. And this is great. This is a good funnel, and we can see what percent of people are dropping off. And a lot of what you would do as a product manager is to understand who dropped off. And so here, there's options like seeing the exact users who dropped off. Obviously, you probably want to see their picture in email, but this is demo, so don't worry. And then you'd see they installed and they signed up and they subscribed and then they watched a video, but they didn't watch the video long enough. I wonder why, things like that. You get a good view. Or you also might want to just you can look at what exactly happened step by step to all the users who crashed or who churned. You can see okay, good users did that, bad users did that. And don't worry about memorizing all these features. I'm just showing you what, as a product manager who's data driven, you would look at every day. We would do different things. We would break down. Okay, we would maybe do okay, how are people on different ages doing? Right? Maybe some people are converting better at different ages, and we're seeing people who are 10 years old love TikTok more than people who are 20 and 30, things like that, right? This is kind of the bread and butter of stuff. And this is where you would start figuring out who you should target, who you should improve. A great one, like I said earlier, this one doesn't have it, would be iOS versus Android, things like that. Little hint for you guys, iOS converts to paid way better than Android just because of the user type, things like that. And as a metric, this isn't very helpful because it doesn't show us progress over time. So we would look at the funnel rate over time like this, probably. But you know what? For now, it's colorful and nice, so we'll just go with this. Great. 30 days. Save. KPIs. And then follow comment rate, things like that. We'll make a report here again. We might do, I don't think this demo, okay, it has a video. Now here's the problem. Why don't we want to track unique users who liked a video as a metric? Well, it's because if marketing does a good job and we get more users, then that metric goes up. But that's not because the product got better, huh? We don't really care about how many unique users liked a video. We really don't. What we care about is what percent of users are liking videos. So what we could do in that case is we'll say basically any user. It would be all events, arguably. And so we'll target all users and we'll target users who did a like video event. And we might do a formula, just like Google Sheets, where we do A divided by B, and then times 100. Let's make it a percentage. And then I don't want to see That's weird. Should have shown 3 events. That's okay. Let's just make it simple. There you go. And then now we have a percentage. Now we can see that, okay, we had unique numbers before, but that didn't mean anything. But now we have a metric that matters. We're seeing roughly every day, 13% of users are liking videos. And for some reason, it spiked on December 27th. And that would be very interesting as a product manager to know, why did it spike? Recently on TikTok, everyone in America thought that they're going to have to leave. So they had this whole following spree of everyone following each other, everyone liking, just to hype each other up, which is very funny. And you would see that in the data. So you look at that and you kind of look back to the product and see what's happening. And so we'll write here, engagement, here, like rate. Say something like that, edit here. And then finally, we would look at, let's say, retention. By the way, there's some other features in here. There's things like that are very important, like flow. Like if you want to know what people do after they like a video or before they like a video, you want to use user flows to see, okay, oh, people who like a video often like a video again, or watch a video, or they often dislike a video after that. Things like that is very useful to understand kind of user behavior before and after an event. And you can also wonder, okay, well, what do people do before they like a video? Well, they watch a video, right? And then you can break it down into like how long do they watch, things like that. Very useful. But to go back to retention, our retention, we'll focus on newer user retention for now. So we'll do, okay, people who installed a product, and then I want to see users who are coming back to watch a video on each day. And then we have a retention rate. So this is like we saw in activation, though. This is always what retention rates are looking like. They're an L curve. And we get to see how many people were originally doing something and then how many people were coming back to do something. Right? That's what we kind of want to see. So we could see our D1 is app install is for some reason not perfect. So we're just going to do any event for the first time. And it's okay. Yeah, the demo event's a little weird, but assume this was at 100. We could see that most users, only 26% of users were coming back the next day. So that would be the metric that we would be going after. Of course, again, you can break this down however you want. You can see that, okay, per country, Japan is retaining better than the US. US is retaining better than somewhere else. The US is retaining better than way better than everyone else. Your next question as a PM is, why is the US experience way better, right? And so you can figure that out. But again, might be boring, but I like you always want to look at things as a line metric to see if you're improving or not. So we'll do that. Retention, B1, new user retention. And then boom, you have, I won't do ad revenues, I'll keep it short. You start having kind of a dashboard of metrics to track, right? And to see how things are going. And then you try to dig into kind of segments or behavior or even user interviews, right? To see, have an idea of how to improve these metrics. And just as a side note, I want to show you some of the things that are possible because I've really only show you kind of the basics. You can see in their demo account, if you ever feel like downloading or signing up for Mixpanel, you'll get access to all this because it's just demo data. You can see other things we talked about, like depth of engagement per user, power user retention, things like that. Number of users watching videos by hashtags, right? There's a lot of people watching Bitcoin these days, Burning Man, things like that. You can see where people dropped off. Compare different user paths. You can see video purchases month over month. Sky is really the limit. And when you get clever, you can start even doing like ad ROI here, but we won't cover that. And see, this is where it's getting really interesting, right? We're looking at an activation, or pre-activation, so it's onboarding from install to key value moment. That's activation. I would call that activation. And this user is looking at it by source. They're looking at, okay, people who came from organic, people who came from Twitter, Facebook, who's performing better. Depending on that, you might want to invest on the one that performs the best, right? That's how it works. But yeah, so that is the gist of my session that I wanted to show you guys. We learned a whole bunch today. We learned product metrics. We learned that product metrics help guide the best companies on their decisions, and it's kind of how you can take yourself to become one of the best PMs instead of just a PM. It really helps you excel because it makes you stare at objective reality and understand what's actually happening instead of just relying on your gut, because our guts can be wrong oftentimes. It helps us track product health and performance. Frameworks such as the focus metric frameworks helps us structure our data into meaningful KPIs and categories and goals and objectives. We learned that the focus metric is defined by active usage by a customer and overall natural time interval. You guys are great with that. And we learned that the focus metric is supported by L1 metrics such as reach, activation, engagement, retention, business specific. We even got to try it out on TikTok. And we kind of saw that not only is this a hypothetical, but it's very easy to construct, and it's very easy to kind of start digging into, right? You can create your goal and then you can start dissecting however you want. And yeah, with that, I thought we could have a little bit of time. We probably won't make it too long, but now that you understand that you need to look at your products with metrics, because metrics give you the precise goals that you need to make better. Yeah, let's talk about your guys's maybe individual products. If you had any questions trying to relate what you just learned to what you need to do for your course, as well as any other general questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Shoin. Everyone, let's use this time to share any questions that you have for Shoin, whether about product metrics, or especially your the project you're working on for the capstone.
Hi, I have a question. Thanks
Sure.
for your presentation. So you were talking about L1 and L2.
Yeah.
Generally, I guess this applies to both L1 and L2, but in terms of time and resources, how much time does the team usually get to do these sort of in-depth analyses?
That's a great question. So essentially, it's just part of your pretty much weekly routine. Is like, if you're joining a big company, if you join Mercari, you would maybe join like activation, like help new users get accustomed to either buying or selling, right? And that is your goal. That is your goal for your like quarter. That is a goal for a year. And so your goal weekly would be to understand users in different ways. One is to interview them, but another way is to look under metrics to really figure out, okay, what is this comprised of? What types of actions are these users doing? So you would probably, if your goal was level 1, you would probably think about a level 2 metric with your team and come up with some ideas. And then you might realize that some of them are kind of dead end, so you'd update them. More often than not, even the level 2 metrics are decided for you. So you just will go with that level 2 metric too, and then try to dive kind of deeper. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the great question. And I see a general question on the comments, so I'll answer that. My company wants to use a data analytics software, SEMrush. Have you used it before? So yes, I recommend it, but that's for SEO mainly. Yeah, SEMrush, you should. There are many types of analytics. Today we talked about product analytics because a lot of us want to be or trying to be product managers. SEMrush is how you get bigger reach, right? To get more users through SEO and ads. So totally worth it.